All right, Chris, let's start here. Your first thoughts about Mike Vrabel as the 16th head coach of the New England Patriots. It feels like, and I was trying to go back and compare my feelings during that press conference to my feelings with the Mayo press conference a year ago, almost to the day, remarkably, a year ago, where you had Mayo come in and there was very positive energy in the building. Everyone was excited. Everyone, this is a new beginning, new start. The difference with Vrabel is there is a level of security and a level of, oh, this guy's been here before. This guy knows how to do it. This guy's won in the league. He's been to the playoffs. He knows all the little things where you're not starting from zero with your head coach. What were some of your initial thoughts when you saw the Vrabel press conference and how things have kind of started now with the Mike Vrabel era here in New England?
Um, I mean, you could just tell right away that the overwhelming self confidence that he kind of just exudes into his press conference. Been there, done it before, won in the NFL. Probably should have still been in the NFL if the Titans didn't get rid of him, and now they're searching for a head. It's just I am excited for him. I am interested to see who he brings in to help him on the defensive and offensive side of the ball. Um, but you could just tell that this is going to be another completely different, differently run program. This is not sure he was a player. Is he a player's coach? I don't really think so. I think he's going to expect a certain level of expectation, and if you don't meet that expectation, get the F out. Right? I don't think he's going to play games with these guys. I think he's going to have conversations with the young guys that didn't perform well this year. He didn't draft these guys. These are not his guys. So yeah, sure, Eliot, whatever, it is what it is. But I think he's going to come in. He's going to want certain guys. I think Raves is going to be able to bring guys here because of who he is, what he's done. So I think he's going to help him tremendously in free agency. Yeah, I mean, listen, man, I'm pumped. It's I, again, cautious optimism is that maybe change the fucking name of the podcast. This is Chris Price and Chris Hogan, cautious optimism for the Patriots reporters.
Yeah, he does have, and I'm curious if this helps. He does have a big personality.
Yeah.
He does. He's a charismatic guy, and that's not to compare him to Jerod, but he reminded me a little bit of a young Bill Parcells in that
Mm.
press conference, where he's not
That's
just
a big
that's exactly, and I should probably pump the brakes in terms of his personality, in terms of the way he approaches. It was funny. I talked to Troy Brown about it, and Troy played for Parcells. He was a teammate of Vrabel's, and they approach it the very same way. There's some Belichick there in the way that they kind of get on you a little bit and kind of,
yeah.
kind of stick the needle in, but there's also very much of a tough love that you get with Vrabel, and this is according to guys who played for him and guys who played with him, that you maybe don't get with Bill. I just, again, I just go back to the idea that he's done it before. He's been, he's a guy, he's assembled a staff. He has won games in the league. He has a good resume, not a great resume, because it ended, I want to caution people, it didn't end great in Tennessee through, I don't know, maybe fault of his own, the dynamic between the head coach and the GM, but the feeling of security that you get from a head coach who's gone through it before, I think, at least right now, as we sit here in mid-January, that's the big differentiation between him and Jerod.
Yeah. I mean, I think for the players, um, I think that they can be excited knowing, hearing and reading about all the inconsistency in the weekly schedules and everything that was going on this year. And I don't fault Gerard on that kind of stuff. I think he was learning. It was the first time doing as a head coach, and I'm sure that he was trying to figure out what worked and what didn't work. And unfortunately, that can send a mixed message, I think, to players that they expect a certain schedule and it to be the schedule. I think as a player, we perform better underneath a schedule that's consistent and not constantly changing. So I think that what they're going to get is this year, Raves has done it. He knows what he wants to do. He's going to have a very strict schedule going forward of what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish. I'm sure that can change week to like small things week to week on maybe what they're working on specifically. But I think that as a player, you should be pretty excited about having him kind of lead the charge here. I think again, just going to go back to it is who is he going to bring in on the offensive defense side of the ball? That's what I'm most curious about. Um, we all know that he's a defensive guy. So, and I think we can all agree that, yeah, sure, does our defense need help? Yes, but are they going to be well coached by Vrabes and who he brings in? I would believe that they are. Who are they bringing in on the offensive side of the ball to kind of continue Drake's progression and help him out? Like you just don't want to get into this situation where you bring in somebody that just doesn't vibe with Drake, and now we're having a down year, and now everyone's saying, but you know what? I don't even feel like talking about it because you know where I'm going with this,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like that's excuse me, that's the biggest question that I have going into this offseason.
I want to get your take on the offensive coordinators. We feel good about what he can bring to the defensive side of the ball, regardless of whatever coordinator he brings in, and decides this guy's going to run the defense. With Vrabel's resume, his track record, the guys that he gets, you feel good about where the defense is going to be. It's reasonable to predict that this defense is going to be on the upswing. They're going to get the arrow pointed in the right direction. Offensively is another matter. The people that I've talked to over the last week or so, even his most ardent supporters question his offensive philosophy and what he wants to do. Because look, he had a generational running back in Tennessee in Derrick Henry. And you get a generational player, you're going to build the offense around him. This offense right now, maybe they will have a generational offensive player, but they don't have a generational guy at this point. I am curious to see where he goes. There's talk up here about Josh.
Yeah.
There is, Tommy Rees was a guy who he worked with last year in Cleveland. He's going to be the Cleveland offensive coordinator, so you kind of put him off to the side. He's not a possibility anymore. The name that I'm intrigued by the most is Josh McCown, because McCown was the quarterback's coach. He was the guy who, at least right up until the last couple weeks, reinvented Sam Darnold or played a large role in reinventing Sam Darnold. The other thing too, he coached Drake in high school back in North Carolina. He coached him for a couple of years, and you want to keep a small thread of continuity and familiarity there. Maybe that's something that you hold on to. I don't know if Josh McCown, honestly, maybe you bring in McCown as a quarterback's coach.
Yeah.
Or you go all the way and you make him the offensive coordinator. But the connection there between Drake Maye and Josh McCown, I think it's a thread that's worth pulling on here. What do you think in terms of an offensive approach? I guess boiling it down here, in terms of an offensive approach, in terms of an OC, do you want Josh? Do you want that familiar Earhart Perkins? Do you think he's ready for that? Or do you think they maybe go in another direction with a McCown, whoever?
Well, let's talk about Josh McCown first. I think that on the offensive side of the ball, you need to heavily invest into the guy that's going to be with Drake day in and day out. From the time that they get back from, they're going to start the offseason early because now we have a new head coach. We got some extra time. This is something that I would not be taking lightly at all. We're not just throwing a guy in the room with Drake just to like watch film. Like you need a guy that's going to mentor him, a guy that's going to coach him. Like, sure, if it's Josh McCown, great. Josh McCown's great quarterback. You've seen what he's done with Sam Darnold. I mean, like, and I've said for years to people that Sam Darnold had all of the talent in the world. He needed a better coach. And you see what he did this year in Minnesota. Yes, he had guys that played through, but that's him making the throws, man. That's not no one else is doing that for him. So that's where I start. Do I think that it's the right thing to bring in a first-time offensive coordinator? No, I don't. I don't think that's the move. I really don't. Listen, man, Josh McDaniels comes with the whole bag of his past and what he's done. Here's Josh McDaniels in a broad stroke. He is one of the best offensive-minded coaches I have ever been around in my entire career. The way that he game plans, the way that he coaches the game, his level of expectation. This is what this team generally needs, right? Is
Mhm.
someone that's not going to take shit, that wants it done a specific way, and is gonna put guys in the right position to succeed. I just don't think we saw that last year. It just kind of, and I'm not taking anything away from Van Pelt. I thought he did a good job for what he was kind of dealt with this year, and but I just don't think we put enough guys in positions. We didn't see a lot of different personnels and guys all over the place and moving parts. What you're going to get with Josh is guys are going to be put in all different sides, different positions. He's going to set people up. He's going to set Drake up so that he knows what the coverage is. He's always going to go to the huddle with two plays. He's always going to be put in a better situation, at least from a game plan perspective. And like if you could bring him out, off the couch, I just I think that he would I think that he would welcome the chance to coach with Vrabel and be like, dude, you're not a head coach. You've tried this before. It didn't work out. But like, bro, you're a freaking amazing offensive coordinator. Like, come in here and do that for me. Help this young kid, coach this kid, like help these young guys. And whoever we bring in, free agency in the draft, like help me get these guys there. Even on the offensive line. So like, dude, he would have been so helpful this year because listen, we didn't have a Dante Scarnecchia that could have, but like from a game plan, dude, it didn't matter. You could have put freaking whoever out on the offensive line, but they would have game planned for it. And they would have done it the way that, like, hey, this is going to be successful for us. We're not just going to run this play and maybe it's going to work. Like, we're not doing that with Josh. So, yeah, I like the idea of a little bit of consistency and familiarity with Josh. I think that I think that he can help Drake a lot. I really do. So if you can get two Joshes, that'd be even better.
Do you think that approach that, and I'm broad brushing it here, and I want you to help me out as a former player, a guy who's played for Josh in a Josh McDaniels offense, that Drake at this stage of his career could handle that? Because I know that offense puts a lot on the shoulders of a quarterback. And I would be reticent to put too much on him too early. And the other thing too is you're going to look at you look at those past offenses, the offenses that you guys ran, and look, part of it is you had a world-class quarterback, a generational talent in Tom Brady, but that requires a lot of the wide receivers. It puts a lot on the shoulders of the wide receivers. And if you're going to run that offense, I don't want to say you're going to sweep the wide receiver room clean, but there are going to be guys who are on the roster now who are going to be looking for jobs. And look, that's just part of life in the National Football League. I understand that. I guess ultimately my question is, do you think this group, as currently constituted, could run a Josh McDaniel style Erhard Perkins offense in New England in 2025?
Yes. But let me explain. So I do think that there has to be a conversation with Vrabel. If Josh were to come in, my conversation with Josh would be like, listen, you're not dealing with Tom. This is not Tom. This is not Brady. You're dealing with a young kid who's got a lot of freaking talent and who's very bright. But let's on ramp this thing. We have a month in that we get because we have a new coach and we have all this extra time. Like, let's on ramp this. And I know Josh. He starts and no matter what year it was, you start in phase one. Phase one is basic stuff, and let's go back and just phase one, but like put the time in with this kid and see what he can handle, and then just it's an on ramp from there and see what he can build. I do think that Drake can handle it. I do, and I think that I think his expectation for himself, it should be way up here. I think that he should take that on and put that on his shoulders to be like, I'm ready for this type of responsibility and accountability, and I can do it. And if I can't, like, you need to be able to have someone in there that's vocal about it and that they can at least have a conversation and not go out there and feel like I don't know what I'm doing. If he doesn't, then like, all right, back off a little bit. In the receiver room, it's going to be tough. I think that you have a couple guys that, you have Kendrick. I think that Pop would be able to handle it. Um, Other than that, it kind of, you get into this conversation. It's like, okay, well, these guys, we didn't really get a lot of performance out of them this year. They have a lot of talent, so let's challenge them, right? It's either figure it out or get out, right? And that's kind of the world that you're going to live in with a Josh McDaniels offense. You're not going
Mhm.
to be able to put guys out there. I mean, we saw it over the years of the amount of guys that came in and out who couldn't handle his offense. It's like, dude, if you can't do it, like you just can't play. We can't put you out there. So I do think that we have a few in there. You're going to have to add pieces to the puzzle, and you're going to have to see if guys are going to be able to take on that kind of responsibility of learning an offense with that has a lot of intricacies and a lot of detail, and they're going to have to put in the work. And that's, to be honest, like that's completely on them. You listen, you can't hold a guy's hand through the entire his entire years in the NFL. Like, here it is, do your work, study, get to know it, and that's going to dictate whether or not you're on the field or not. And that's on
Alex
you.
ran, Alex Van Pelt ran, and again, I'll broad brush it here, kind of a West Coast style offense, quick
Yeah.
passes, kind of get the ball out in
Yeah.
kind of speed. This is more, Josh's offense is more of a wide receivers can do multiple things out of the same set.
Yep.
And you need to be aware of everything
Yep.
if you're a wide receiver. It's not just being a, and I'm putting up a quote fingers here, a traditional slot receiver, where the slot receiver has a very specific list of responsibilities. This is this is a whole nother world
Oh
for
yeah.
these young wide receivers. And maybe they flourish in this. They just
Yeah.
were it was square peg round hole situation with the offense this past year. But I am with you. I think there is going to be massive change. There would have been changes anyway at the wide receiver position, but if you're bringing in a Josh McDaniels and you're kind of marrying what you learned last year, if you're Drake Maye, you're kind of marrying what you learned last year with this new offense. Maybe the wide receivers flourish in this. Maybe this
Yeah.
is what they wanted. Maybe they're better at this than the other approach. Who knows?
I mean, as a young guy, if I was Polk or Baker, I would welcome a new coordinator. Be like, this is clean slate, new opportunity. Doesn't really matter. Josh can watch the tape. Doesn't really matter. There's not much tape to watch, right? So I'm going to welcome a new offensive coordinator, and I would be generally excited that I get another chance to kind of learn something different and then show my skills and talents and whatever it is, do whatever I have to do to get on the field. I think what Josh has is he's got a little bit of consistency with Pop. He knows what he's going to get there. So Pop already knows that offense. So he has a guy that's going to be able to hopefully take on a leadership role in that room and get guys up to speed and be like, hey, day one, listen, man, this is the expectation, right? This is not just, we are not receivers on the board. We're not just going to put catches and touchdowns. Like, it's blocking responsibilities, all of the different formations. Like, that's what we're learning so that we can go out there and run Josh's offense effectively, is to be able to be put in all these different positions, and that's on us. And it's, if you're going to be able to do that, then those guys will make their way onto the field. If you can't, then you're not going to suit up. I mean, that's really what it is. So it's interesting, man. Josh is an interesting candidate for that job because of obviously his history in New England and what he can kind of bring to the table, and just I think his overall approach to the game and um how he can game plan, and I think that what he could bring to the table with a young quarterback and helping with his progression and learning this game. Is he the right one? Is he the right candidate? I don't know. I think the what else could be interesting is one of these younger guys that's run and gun, and we're gonna have ball's gonna be in the air, and we're gonna try to make splash plays, and who knows, man? It's the what he's gonna do on the offense. I don't know if any of us could really tell. I mean, I hope he makes a decision sooner rather than later so that they
Mhm.
can start to build a rapport up there, but. Um, it's definitely something to keep a close eye on for sure.
Last Josh McDaniels question for me is that, and you would know this, but measure his overall approach when it comes to being dogmatic, when it comes to if something is not working, like he theoretically, and just kind of the idea of running the same offense that you had with Tom Brady there, you maybe want to marry some of the two. You want to kind of connect the what Drake does, and maybe if that doesn't work well, then your offense, you bring some of that and you take some of your offense. Is he the kind of guy who might be able to concede some points and say, look, let's do this as opposed to this, because if we do this, it's banging a square peg into a round hole over and over and over and over and over again.
I mean, Josh is not going to go into a game and be calling plays that he thinks is not going to work, right? And he'll evaluate with his staff. He's gonna evaluate his players. He's gonna say, okay, what is Pop good at? What is Baker good at? What is Polka? What is Booty good at? Like, what is Hunter? Like, what are these guys best at? And how do we put these guys in the best positions to be able to do those things? And that's what he did. He was always that, with a plethora of different formations and different ways of getting to those plays. So I think that was always interesting. It's like, dude, we could run the same play from 11 personnel that we can from 22 personnel, right? We had the guys that could be able to do that. I think that there are some pieces there that will welcome that sort of responsibility and that kind of accountability in this team. And I think from a game plan perspective, he could help tremendously, especially when it comes to offensive line. David Andrews could tell you, man. I mean, that, like, yeah, it's a lot, but he's going to go into these games with specific plays that he knows that his offensive line is going to be able to block, because they do it at nauseum. They walk through 9,000 different times before they even get out to practice. They do it another 9,000 times at practice, and then we're going to do it again in walkthrough on set. So they do the walkthroughs and all his process of teaching these guys what game plan and what we're doing for games, and during the offseason, like, he's got a process and how he does. He doesn't just like throw shit at the wall and hope it sticks. Like, he's got a process, and I think that process can help this team, regardless of if we had the same roster or not. I think that he would have helped us win games this year just off of that alone. So, again, interesting thing to be talking about in New England. It'll be interesting to see what Braves wants to do. But that's something that the offensive side of the ball, I'm the most interested to see, like, what he does there. I really am.
Another big point of conversation up here right now is how the marriage between Eliot Wolf and Mike Vrabel is going to work moving forward. Vrabel's bringing in his own guy, Ryan Cowden, who he worked with in Tennessee. There's already an established front office in place, and it certainly sounds like Eliot Wolf is going to be sticking around at least for the short term. I'm curious. They talked a lot, or at least Vrabel talked a lot, about a shared organizational vision. And it sounds like, at least initially, that Vrabel and Wolf are very much on the same page as to how they want to rebuild this thing moving forward. Now, that being said, there's no working history there between the two. I am curious if you've ever been a part of a team where there was an arranged marriage between the GM and the head coach, and there was some beef behind the scenes, and maybe how did that manifest itself on the field, in the locker room, when it comes to maybe wins and losses overall?
Yeah. My second year in Buffalo, first year in Buffalo that I was on the roster. I don't really feel like going down the name route, but drafted a quarterback in the first round. You have your level of expectation was really high for these guys, and there was some beef between a head coach and a GM where I've seen physically, like, on the sidelines in each other's faces, and, like, that's. I don't care what type of team you have. I don't care who you have on that team. That's something that's never going to end up well for an organization, and the next year that head coach didn't last, and they moved on from the GM as well. So it's, I think, for Raves and for Eliot, it's they're in the honeymoon phase right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where, yes, well, why would you be in the media right now saying that you don't like what this guy, like, no, everything's gonna be perfect. We love each other. We have a shared vision. We're gonna work closely.
Vrabel was talking about the inside jokes they already had, talking
Right.
about what kind of players you want, good ones.
Yeah, we work so well together. We're like best friend. He's the best friend I never had, and great. But when push comes to shove, starting in draft night and going forward, how well are these guys going to work together? Um, we don't know, right? I mean, we really don't know. Again, I think that that relationship is gonna have to evolve over time. Um, I think that Eliot hasn't really he hasn't been given enough time to help build this team, and I think that we both can confidently say that we're in a rebuilding phase of this organization.
Mhm.
So changing the dynamic and changing the people every single year is not going to help. So I think you kind of have to go with what you got. And I think Eliot and Vrabel are two very well qualified people that are going to be able to build this team, right? Nick and Bill did never mesh. Like they had their differences. They had every single GM coach relation. They're going to have their differences, but figure it the F out. Like, you know what I'm saying? And just like at the end of the day, have your shared vision is just the ultimate goal of just getting this team back to a winning football program. That's what they have to like. Yeah. Are you going to beef and are you guys going to do it behind closed doors? Right. Don't let the team doesn't know. They need to know that you guys have their full support and you guys are working towards the same thing. So I think you have to let that relationship evolve. They want to share their inside jokes, great. I think everything is kind of they're in holding hands, skipping through Hawaii right now in their honeymoon phase. But it's like I think when push comes to shove and they get down to business, and it's like, all right, how are we going to rebuild this team? Who are we going to bring in? They're both going to have their preferences and their opinions. And I think just being able to work through that and it is going to be the biggest test for the first test of their relationship. Moving into a new house, right? And what sort of things really pissed them off? Like, do they brush
Mhm.
their teeth weird? Does they snore at night? I don't know. So they don't really know anything about each other yet. So I think once they start making those bigger decisions, you'll see that relationship kind of go one way or the other. And I think that Eliot, and Braves, listen, Braves is a much more outspoken and he has, he's been there, done it, and he's going to want it done a certain way. So he's certainly not just going to roll over and just be like, hey, take the reins on this thing. Like, no, man, like you were brought in here by the crafts for a very specific reason. And that's to win football games and bring this program back to where it was. And I think that he's going to take that pretty seriously. So, um, again, another thing to watch, this offseason is how does that whole relationship kind of unfold and does it work well together? Because that's going to be a big part of this organization getting back to where it was.
It feels like we're heading into a situation where Cowden and Elliot Wolf and maybe Alonzo Highsmith and other people, Matt Groh, will bring Vrabel a list of guys. Vrabel will say, look, we need a left tackle in free agency or the draft. And those guys will work to bring him a list of guys, and Vrabel will say, okay, I want that one. So I think ultimately Vrabel will have the loudest voice in the room, but it will still be kind of a collaborative process like we saw last year. I think that Wolf has done enough to insulate himself with the crafts, and he's gotten to a point where he is trustworthy. Look, and we've discussed this before. I'm not going to go overboard in giving him a lot of praise for what he did last year with Drake Maye. The talk up here is, well, yeah, of course he drafted Drake Maye. It was a no-brainer. Well, he didn't trade out of the spot. He took the right guy. He took the guy who's going to be your franchise quarterback for the next decade. So let's give him a little bit of credit for that.
Oh,
But he had a rough offseason. But at the same time, I think, and we ultimately agree to kind of put a bow on this, the idea that it was just one off season.
yeah.
And he was hamstrung in some other areas, and he is now working with a guy who knows what it takes to win football games in the National Football League. So his role will differ. It'll be a different head coach. They have $100 million under the cap. They have 4 picks in the top 100. They're set up, and they have the franchise quarterback. And they have a schedule in 2025 that, at least right now, as we sit here in mid-January, looks to be a lot friendlier than the 2024 slate did. So let's return. Let's continue to bang the table for the Cautious Optimism podcast and look ahead to the rest of the league when it comes to, I don't want to look too much, I don't want to look too far back on our wild card picks because I don't want to revisit what happened to the Vikings. But the Rams, for me right now, feel like when you take you talk about what's going on in Southern California with the fires, the emotional level there, the fact that they are playing their best football at the right time. I'm not saying that they're going to knock off the Eagles and knock off the Lions maybe and go to the Super whatever. But the Rams look like a team that's found something right now. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you kind of, it seems like to me, at least on their off, I think their defense is playing with a bit of a chip on their shoulder. I've listened to some of the guys and talk over the last couple of weeks, leading up to this game, thinking that the Vikings were just going to blow them out and it wasn't even going to be a game. So they got a little chip on their shoulder. You have a quarterback who's been there and done it before, and it seems like to me that Sean McVay is just kind of hitting stride right now with his play calling, and that's a scary that's a scary thing right there. If he is starting to really get into a rhythm of his play calling and his game planning, it's like, okay, like let's buckle down here because now you're going to have Cup and Puka and all those guys running all over the place doing different things, and you're just going to be blindsided for it. So who are they at? They have Philly, right?
They have Philly. They're traveling to Philly. That's a tall order, man.
Yeah,
That is a tall, tall order.
it is. And Philly's got the playing in their home stadium and outdoors, and it's gonna be freaking freezing cold. So I mean, listen, they have that going for them, playing in their elements in their stadium. Um, but again, you saw the way that they came out. I mean, that's a tough environment to play in Minnesota and come in and play like that. I mean, they got a lot of momentum going into this game, so it's going to be interesting. It really will be. I mean, I think to me, I want Hurts to beat me with the football in the air.
Mhm.
That's my. You've seen the frustration from AJ Brown this year. You've seen Devontae just not. He's had a good. Really, he's had a decent year. I think. I don't know what his stats are, but he hasn't taken over games. Neither of them have.
Mhm.
I would challenge them. I would take away Saquon and challenge Hurts to beat me in the air, and gotta go from there. And then on the defensive side of things, I think again, it seems like to me that he's kind of hitting stride in his play call. And if I was defensive back for the Eagles, like I'd be ready for anything and everything in this game. Coming here, it's going to be. Bradford's going to throw the ball probably 45 times for this game, and it's just going to
Stafford,
be
Stafford,
Stafford.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's going to be just ball's going to be in the air, and he's going to be looking for his two guys. And if you can't stop them, then it's going to be a close game for sure.
You see AJ Brown reading on the sidelines
Yeah,
during the game.
yeah. I mean, listen, man, the guy's been going through it this year, so it's like I, I have like I think it's I had my own feelings about it, but he's trying to get through it, man. He whatever way you got to get motivated to if it's reading books and motivational books and that's your way of getting through it, then that's your way of getting through it, man. And I got I respect the hell out of it that that's what he does on the sideline. If that's what you need to do to kind of stay focused and do what you have to do to like what's best for the team, then keep on reading that book, my man, because I think the Rams are going to make you beat them, this weekend. So you
You ever
better.
had a guy? You ever had a teammate read on the sidelines?
No, I've never seen that before.
What? Okay, how about this? What's the most unique thing you've ever seen a teammate do on the side? If you haven't seen him read, there's stories, and I'm reticent to even go there, but there's stories about Larry Izzo doing goofy shit on the sidelines. Um, have you ever had a
I
teammate
know. I'm
like
trying to think.
someone said I guess I think it was Brady who said this. He saw a teammate eat a hot dog on the sidelines, like have and maybe this is during a preseason game. I don't know. You ever had one of those weird, like you look over and someone's doing something weird, 3 or 4 seats down?
I used to always laugh to myself. You always have the guys that you have all this time before the game to go to the bathroom and do whatever you got to do, and then without fault. I mean, there's a guy in Buffalo. I'm not going to name names, but it was, I mean, literally like on cue. Game would be about first kickoff, and there he is. That all the trainers got the towels holding around. He's peeing on the side on the sideline. I'm like, dude, you had like a half hour to go to the bathroom before, but always had to wait. It's peeing right on the sideline. I've seen that more times than that.
All right, well, let's get to these divisional playoff games. We talked a little bit about the Rams and the Eagles. That's on Sunday, but let's talk about the Saturday games here first. Texans and Chiefs. Look, I think the Texans were fantastic against the Chargers. I think it was a tremendous performance, and I think that they turned a lot of people's heads. Rex Ryan talking about how that was going to be a bye week for the Chargers, but the Texans shut them up, and I think the Chiefs roll in this thing.
Yeah.
I think that Kansas City right now, look, and I've joked about this. I've lost a lot of money betting against the Chiefs over the years. I'm not betting against Kansas City in this one. I think Kansas City wins this one relatively easily, like a 7 to 10 point win for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you. And the only reason I am going to agree with you is because the amount of turnovers that Houston had at the beginning of that game. I mean, the Chargers, they had every opportunity to take that game. They
Mhm.
did, and they could not convert, and they were kicking field goals, and that hurt them in the long run. And they just kind of kept the Texans in the game. But if they're going to turn the ball over like that against the Chiefs, I can't imagine Mahomes not taking advantage of stuff like that. And I mean, this is playoff time, man. You got Mahomes, you got Andy Reid and Travis. These is where these guys shine. And in Kansas City, I mean, you'd be a fool not to bet against them. So the Texans are going to have to come with literally the best game they've ever played this entire season. They can't turn the ball over. They're going to need a lot of big plays from their guys, and their defense is going to have to. I mean, they played well. They did. They played really well against a good Chargers offense. So, I think defensively, I think they'll be okay. It's just how many points are the Texans going to be able to put up, and I think
Yeah.
that'll be the game changer there. Are they kicking field goals or are they putting up points? Are they able to move the ball in Kansas City when it's 5 degrees outside, and who knows? So I'd have to go with the Chiefs Nation over there.
All right. I think we're both in agreement here with that one. And obviously the Chiefs going for a three-peat. They would be the first team in NFL history to ever win three straight Super Bowls, which is a ridiculous statement
Yeah.
to begin with. But I think in this one, we're going to go with where we both go with Kansas City. I have a sneaking suspicion that in this second one, Saturday night, we're going to feel the same way as well. Commanders against the Lions. Commanders have had a great year. I think they've exceeded all expectations coming from 4-13 to reach the divisional playoff round. But this is, and we've talked about this before, this feels like the Lions' year, at least in
Yeah.
the NFC. I don't see a scenario where Jayden Daniels goes into Detroit and wins this game.
I don't, but I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think that it's going to be a 60-minute football game. I really do think that. I've been wildly impressed with this kid this year, and just impressed with the team, which how they've been playing, and they won a playoff game. I don't know when's the last time the Commanders won a playoff game.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time.
So
I don't know off the top of my head.
that organization and that team's got to be feeling pretty damn good about themselves. They're going to come into this game with a lot of energy. So, Detroit is going to have to match that. And I got a couple guys that are up in Detroit, and I mean, that place is electric. I mean, I can't even imagine what that place is like, right? Yeah, especially for this game. So, but I genuinely think this is going to be a dogfight. It's going to kind of rest on the shoulders of Jayden Daniels and how he's going to be able to perform in that type of situation and that sort of game. So, if he's able to play well, not turn the ball over, I do think it's going to be a 4-quarter game. If all of a sudden, the team kind of gets rattled a little bit by the noise, it's going to be loud, and they just don't do well in that environment. Penalties, turn the ball over, then yeah, the Lions are going to kind of walk away easy with this. But I think it's going to be a good game. I do. I don't know what the spread or what the line is on the game, but I do think it's going to be a good game.
I think this is closer to 8, 9, 10 points. I think this is a broader spread. I don't know off the top of my head. This gives me
Yeah.
another excuse to tell my Jayden Daniels story. I went down to LSU last offseason for LSU's pro day. And
Yeah.
I got a chance to talk with him for 5 to 10 minutes, kind of off to the side. He gave his press conference and he answered all the questions and he walked out and I kind of followed after him. And we had a really good exchange. And I said, one of my questions was, you know, you might get drafted by the Patriots. There's a lot there. Walking into a situation where you are following Tom Brady, there's a lot of gravity there. You want to be the guy who follows Tom Brady. Admittedly, you're not directly following Tom Brady, but what is that like? Would you be
Yeah.
ready for that pressure? Would you be ready for that level of anxiety? And he says, he kind of looks at me and he smiles. He's like, I walked into Death Valley after Joe Burrow. I think I'm going to be okay. So you love a guy with that kind of level of confidence, bordering on
Yeah.
cockiness, especially at
Yeah.
that age. And we've seen it play out over the course of the
Yeah.
year. And again, I think the Commanders had a fantastic season. The arrow's pointing in the right direction. They're doing all the right
It's,
things. They have this great foundation for the future. But I just think the
have you
fairy tale ends this
have you
weekend.
seen all the memes of the kicker and fix I saw one the other day. It's like, he's fixing his hair, like, oh, he's gonna kick it. Then he like puts a tie on, and then it's like he goes to kick it, and he's like tying his shoes, and he's like checking himself in the mirror. It's like, this is hysterical. It'd be funny if this guy. I mean, they're gonna be probably killing him up in Detroit over that kind of stuff. It is funny.
All right, Sunday.
Just to doink it off the field
Yep.
goal and
Yeah.
win a football game.
The two games of the weekend are Sunday, as far as I'm concerned. We touched a little bit on Rams Eagles. I you know what? I'll say it. I think the Rams are gonna pull the upset. I'm gonna go
Feeling
out on
it.
that limb, man.
Yeah.
I've been really, really impressed with them over the last month. And look, the Eagles are great. The Eagles are a
Mhm.
great football team. And they're playing fantastic. I just feel like the Rams they have that look of one of those teams playing their best football. They got the emotional boost from, playing for a region and playing for the state of California because everything that's going through right now,
Yeah.
they're looking like a team that can kind of bottle a little bit of that. And I hate just relying on intangibles. I'm much more of a guy who looks at numbers and statistics and matchups and stuff, but they have that little extra something there that makes you think they might be able to pull this off.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, uh, you Sean McVay, you got some guys, you got Stafford, you got Puka, you got Cup. I mean, they have the recipe. They really do. And they went into Minnesota, that team that really, played good football all year round, and they frickin' beat the brakes off of them. So if I'm the Eagles, man, I would be fully expecting a very good Rams team to walk into what is it? What's the name of their stadium?
That's the Lincoln Financial Field.
Lincoln Financial.
The
Yeah, I would
link.
be the link. Yeah, I'd be ready for a damn good football team to walk in there and play them on Sunday. So the Eagles are going to have their best stuff. Again, I'm making Hurts beat me with the football. I'm making them throw to AJ. I'm making them throw to Devonta on the outside. I'm taking away Saquon because they've leaned on that all year round. And Saquon's had an unbelievable season, MVP type stuff. What he's
Yep.
done this year, and I think that they've really have leaned into that. So I'm taking him away, and I'm making Hurts beat me with football, and we'll see what happens.
How tough is it to play in Philly?
It's tough, man. But listen, you go on the road in a playoff type scenario and situation, playoff environment. If you're going on the road, it's tough anywhere
Mhm.
because guess what? It's gonna be loud. It's good. The fans are gonna be yelling at you. They're gonna be saying some crazy shit. Like it's tough anywhere. I mean, the toughest place. I can't say the fans were bad, but like going on the road in an AFC Championship game in Kansas City was one of the toughest games I've ever experienced before. Not only because of the weather that we had, because it was like 5 degrees outside, but dude, you couldn't even hear the huddle calls. So like that's something that obviously the Eagles have that advantage, right? And hopefully their fans are as loud as they can be because they have another chance to go to an NFC Championship game. So Yeah, I mean it's tough, man. It's going to be a hostile environment for
Okay,
LA.
how about this? Where's the toughest place that when you saw that you were playing this spot, wherever it is, you got the schedule in April or May and said, "Oh shit, we're going to where's the worst place for you? Where did you absolutely hate to play?"
I didn't I didn't hate to play anywhere. The in 2016 when we or no, the 2017 we went to New Orleans. That was Drew's last year, I think, there. Um or one of his last years. But they had a good football team, Michael Thomas, those guys, and playing in New Orleans was a tough spot. I mean, also go to Buffalo and play in there, and you have less like literally, it seems like a 5 by 5 locker room that you have 53 guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, the
So
worst
there
visitors locker room in
are
the NFL.
yeah, there you have that element to it too, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like you walk into an NFL locker room and all of a sudden it's like this looks like my bedroom that I grew up in with you got a bunch of guys like literally like shoulder to shoulder, like trying to get dressed and like roll out and go like so. There is a tiny bit of that element there that you have to deal with too. So, um, but again, there wasn't a place that I hated to play. I loved going on the road. I really did. It was always I think it was playing at home is a different experience because you got your home fans and there's a different energy going on the road and getting to doing some things that silence a crowd and you can just feel the energy just get sucked out of them. Like that was fun stuff too, man. I enjoyed that.
I'm glad that you bring up Buffalo because look, I love Buffalo and the fans there are great and it's such a great atmosphere, such a great environment. The visitors
Yeah.
locker room sucks.
Oh, it's
It just
awful.
sucks. It just sucks.
Terrible.
It's awful because it's not only bad for you guys, but for us after a game to especially a game that the Patriots would lose, you
Yeah.
would go in there and people didn't want you in there anyway. It was
Yeah.
awkward and
You didn't.
difficult.
We didn't want to be in there.
Yeah, and you guys didn't want to be in there. And it's literally wall to it is a high school, it is an elite level high school locker room.
Yeah.
When you compare it to like Dallas or Denver or San Francisco, or there's these
Yeah.
big spacious locker rooms, these big
Yeah.
palaces. In Buffalo, it is just elbow to elbow. And
Yeah.
you're trying to wedge in and you're trying to talk to guys and you're standing around and you're standing on equipment and the equipment guys are trying to rush and get out of there as fast as
Oh
possible.
yeah, there's bags all over the place.
It's just the worst, man. It is. It's just the worst. Anyway, and speaking of Buffalo, and speaking of the
Yeah.
Bills, the last game of divisional playoff weekend, Baltimore in Buffalo, Sunday night. This is going to be the game of the weekend.
Yeah.
This is going to be the game of the weekend. I'm still riding with the Bills,
I am
but
too.
that Baltimore team, man, they do a lot of things really well, led by that quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, oh, it's tough. It really is tough to call, man. If Lamar comes out and he plays the way that he can play, and Derrick Henry's run the football, I mean, to be honest with you, there is a world where the Ravens go into Buffalo and blow them out.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a world. I mean, Josh Allen and everything that he could do and everything that that team could do. I mean, I think that the Bills are going to be able to put up points. I do. I really do think that. I think that the Bills defense is going to be challenged tremendously. And how well are they going to be able to contain Lamar? How well are they going to be able to contain Derrick Henry? That's going to be the story of this game. I really do think that. And yeah, man, I mean, that's going to be a good football game. It really is. I'm excited to watch that one. I mean, I'm with the Bills because AFC, they're my team in the AFC. I played for them, and I can't even imagine what Orchard Park and Buffalo, New York is feeling. I mean, everyone, it's probably 2 degrees up there, but at least people got smiles on their face because the Bills are winning. So, that place is going to be freaking electric, man. That it's going to be an awesome, awesome environment. Both of which are used to playing in. So it's not like one's team's favored just because of the weather. Um, yeah, I mean, again, it's going to rest on Allen's shoulders. How well is he going to be able to take over this game, and how well is the Bills defense going to be able to kind of scheme up for Lamar and Derrick? And because both those guys have been playing awesome this year. So
It's phenomenal,
yeah,
that pairing. And again, I'm with you. I can see a scenario where Baltimore goes in and blows them out. I can also see a
yeah,
scenario where the Bills find a way and Josh
yeah,
Allen throws for 4 touchdowns and they
yep,
win 28-24.
yep.
But we'll end on this here. If Buffalo wins, if Buffalo gets to the Super Bowl, just gets to the Super Bowl, they will have beaten Baltimore and Lamar and Derrick Henry and all that, and then they have to go into Kansas City and beat Patrick Mahomes and Travis.
It's a tough road to get there,
It
man.
is
It really
brutal.
is.
It is
It's really
absolutely
tough.
brutal. It is absolutely.
It's a tall order, but they've listen. They've been playing their best football. So you kind of saw in the beginning of that game, you were like, oh, Denver and Bo Nix, and oh, they're gonna make this a game, but they showed why they are who they are lately on the second quarter of that game, where they took over that football game.
Mhm.
They're gonna have to do that same stuff, and Josh can't turn the ball over. You cannot, and in this type of situation, these types of games, and when you're playing a good team, you cannot turn the football over. It is a recipe for disaster. And if you're going to give a team like the Ravens, or if they make it through the Ravens, and you give Patrick Mahomes another possession, it's going to be tough sledding, man. So it's going to rest on his ability to make plays and not turn the football over, and how well they're going to be able to stop the other guys. I mean, it'll be fun. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I'm looking forward to that one.
Great weekend of NFL football, and then Monday we have the national championship. So a lot of football to talk about when we
Yeah.
reconvene next week, as well as hopefully maybe some conversation about an offensive and defensive coordinator we can throw in there as well. Chris Hogan, thank you very much for your time, my friend. Take care, and we will talk again very soon.
All right, brother. Thank you.